What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Barefoot Garage. And as you can see behind me, we got some empty space, which means it's new project time. Welcome to 2006. This baby right here is a 2006 Buell Ulysses XB12X. It is Buell's dual sport adventure touring, sport adventure touring, depending on who you ask, bike. It has a tuned up 1200cc Harley derived engine, aluminum frame, oil in the swing arm, fuel in the frame, very sophisticated, very futuristic kind of bike. Unfortunately, Buell is out of business, so I've been interested in these for a little while. Had a good deal come up on one, which was more or less a straight swap for the old Trials bike I had, and so I picked it up and want to check it out. So I'm going to start doing a couple of things to it, and let's talk motorcycles for a few minutes, and then we'll get into what's going to happen to the Buell tonight and why I had to push it into the garage. All right, this bike is as stock could get. It literally has a Harley Davidson battery. I did change the plugs and put some NGKs in it, but it had Harley Davidson spark plugs. It's got every single OEM thing. I think it's broken the turn signals, but the hand guards are here, the stock mirrors are here, the stock seat, the stock little flippy passenger thing is here. Nobody's even done the tail tidy. It is still fully stock. So I'm excited to be the person that gets to ruin it. That's the way I like to plan my projects. Stock when I get them, and then I get to be the one to decide how I'm gonna make it better or worse. So let's talk about the Ulysses for a minute. 1200cc bike, somewhere near 500 or at least 500 pounds. This is definitely more on the adventure, sport touring, and light adventure side than like your 12GS and your 990s. So probably more comparable to like a Hyper Motard or a Multistrada of the time, something like that. So former to being a Florida man, I did spend some time in Washington State and actually worked for TourTech USA, the importer of TourTech's parts. And so I spent a lot of time around bikes, probably 9 to 10 years ago. And this was an old bike then, and it's a really old bike now. There's really not a lot of stuff available for that. And so I'll show you what we have been able to find. So contemporaries to this, 990, 12GS, like I said, Multistrada, some of the other weird, or probably kind of bikes that they had out at the time. And they're more popular than I thought. There's a lot of them out there. They have held their value okay. This bike was $3 grand, which is a pretty good deal for a 1200cc bike with relatively low miles on it. So this bike is the biggest bike I've ever owned. 1200 cc's. It's going to be more of a street kind of a thing, but I want to be able to put one set of tires on it, outfit this bike to be able to do whatever I want to do. I'm not going to ride single track with it. I'm probably not going on a cross-country adventure anytime soon, so I had that 701 Supermoto, which was a fun bike, but it was honestly more dirt bike, frantic dirt bike, than it was something that was like enjoyable to just like go take a cruise on. So this is gonna be a little bit more of a street-oriented thing that I can still kind of do some dirt roads, forest road stuff. That's really all there is here in Florida, and so that's what we're gonna do with the bike. So first off, this bike, I just got it, put an oil change on it, put some plugs in it, and I have changed the grips, but that's it. It literally still had the Harley Davidson spark plugs in it, and so it does do better with that. I did put a K&N air filter and a K&N oil filter on it, and some decent, V-twin American kind of oil on the bike. So things that it needs some adjustment on the windscreen, which is basically useless. It needs the ability to put a GPS on up high. I don't like GPS down low, I want it up high. We're going to put a bigger side stand foot, and eventually we're going to find a way to put some luggage on this bike. I do have some luggage from a former bike, and I want to make sure that this can go on this should I want to go on a trip. Got something coming up here in Florida in a couple of months that I'm hoping to take this bike on, so we're going to start getting into it. Other than that, if we start really doing some more dirt stuff, these tires are actually in really good shape. Maybe I can pass them on to somebody else, but it needs more of like a 70-30, 50-50 tire. I don't know if that's going to be TKC 70 rocks, TKC 80, the Pirellis, I'm not sure yet. It's a very unusual size, 17-17, but it's a really fat 180/55 in the back. And so it's going to be something that I'm going to shop around a little bit or do some cross-referencing on sizes. So let's take a look at what we're going to do tonight and get it ready for some of our first rides on the Ulysses. New parts. I have a new battery ready to go, getting charged up right there. So side stand foot, always a good option, always a good thing if you're going to park your bike anywhere, basically anywhere that's not completely paved. All of these parts are from a company called Palmer Products out of the UK. Shipped super fast, pretty reasonable. There's their information. I'll put it in the description as well. And we've got several parts that we're going to go on here. This is a windscreen adjustment bracket with the optional GPS bar. I am reusing my TourTech Montana mount, locking mount. We'll go onto the bar. And I've got a Montana 600 that I still use and is still excellent unit. Instead of wiring it direct, this time I'm going to wire it to a quick disconnect for a battery tender, and then I'll have one attached to the battery. I can connect these together to charge the GPS, or I can run it out to go to the battery since the bike's not going to get a ton of use. So that's what we're doing tonight. As I said, the only things I've done is oil change, spark plugs, and I did put on these sweet OD motocross grips. These butt grips are on every bike that I've ever owned, except for the TC100. I love them. They're cushy, they're gummy, they feel nice, they take some vibration out, and hopefully I got them glued on there correctly. They are not the lock-on ones. I wish they were, but there's really a lot of bikes that they don't have throttle cams for if it's not two-stroke, four-stroke dirt bike, kind of a stuff like that. So as we talked about on the Ulysses, this has the fuel in it. This is just the air box. It's completely hollow. The oil is down in the swing arm here with a fill over on the other side. And so it is a very unique bike. It feels heavy pushing around the garage. It has very poor steering lock, like sport bike. Like that's on the lock, and you can see that's as far as it's turned. So you do a lot of extra pivoting around. So while the battery gets charged up, let's go ahead and tackle this adjustment up here, and then we'll get into the next part after that. Okay, I do most of my videos in one take. I don't pre-record most of this stuff, and I have to admit, I went and got my metric tools to work on this bike. It's an American-made motorcycle, which is awesome, but I gotta switch back over to all my Imperial tools. So hold tight. All right, I got the bike right here. We are gonna take off this windscreen and cowl kind of all in one piece, and then we'll deal with this. I'm trying to decide if I'm gonna tent this. It's honestly a little bit yellowed and it's a little bit moved around. So Allen key, an SAE Allen key. And so we're gonna pop this guy off here, and then we will build it on the bench and put the whole thing back on the bike. So let me pop this off, and then we will take a look at the parts. The instructions on their website are helpful, but I think it shows a slightly older version of this kit. And so we're gonna do our best to show you guys how to put this on for those of you that's still out there riding the Buell. So I'll meet you guys on the bench once I get this thing off. All right, we're on the bench with this little piece, and these are just little rubber grommets that hold this in, and so I'm gonna do my best to be gentle and pop this apart. I've got a trim tool. I don't know how much this is gonna help because this has 100% never, ever, ever, ever been apart. The guy that I got the bike from got it from a guy who I'm pretty sure just rode it a little bit and literally paid Harley to maintain it. And so that tells you how long ago it's been in for maintenance, because Harley has not sported Buell in a super, super long time. So Buell is a really cool story. It's an American brand bike. It's just a really cool thing. Yeah, we definitely have to do something and tent that. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but this is like super yellowed. So now we got this piece. We'll give this a good clean up while we have it here. And we're gonna pull these rubber grommets out, and then we'll move on to putting some new parts in place. So pull these apart, and then we'll start adding some pieces back. All right, so here's the screen. It's got these 4 little rubber deals on it, trim tool. Get up under here, especially if you're not super worried about scratching your screen, because I'm gonna probably do something different with it. And you're just gonna pop these out. I don't know if we're reusing them. I don't believe we are. But be gentle, because Buell parts are hard to come by. So take these 4 out. I got my 4 out of this one, and then we'll start building our GPS mount and windshield adjustment. All right, so here's our parts, and I've been kind of interpreting these instructions here. These with the long slot are gonna attach to the windshield. These are gonna attach to the bike. The ones with the windshield slot have the windshield attachment ones attached. And the way to tell is it's got the nice finish washer, and it's got this rubbery one that is squishy. And this is gonna help hold it when I set you guys down. One of these is going to go through the hole in the windshield, and then this goes in between, and it's going to hold that in place. I find that rather than trying to push it through, it's easiest to just hold the rubber washer and tighten it, which helps hold that guy in place. And so we're going to do that 4 times. So I have 2 off. I'm going to get the other 2 off, and we're going to put these into here, and then we're going to start attaching the windshield side brackets. All right, and that is what our brackets look like. So remember, you want the slot up, and you want to set these in here. So one of the things that they say is to make sure that these are as parallel as possible. So I'm going to eyeball it. I'm not going to measure it or anything. We're going to gently tighten these down so it's flat washer, lock nut. These are a 10 mil lock nut. Now we're back into metric because I don't know why, even though it's England parts. So we'll go flat washer. And then we'll snug these guys down and keep them as parallel as possible. So you don't need to watch me struggle with that. Cut to the time lapse. And that's it. It was set like that on the bike, and that's how your adjustment slots in. So super nice parts. I don't know what it is about laser cut stainless steel, and it just makes you want to bolt stuff on your motorcycle. So if that doesn't do it for you, I don't know what to tell you, but laser cut stainless is like candy for your motorcycle. So the next part we're going to do is they want you to assemble the other half onto this before you put it on the bike, before you put it on the screen. I'm going to probably test fit these up against the, I don't know what you're going to call this, face screen here, Daryl, to make sure that that's all happy, and then probably offer it up to this. So I'm going to play around with that, and I'll show you the best way to do it in a couple of seconds. All right, so I'll say I've installed my fair share of motorcycle parts, and I've interpreted a fair share of unusual and translated instructions. The instructions on the Palmer website are fine. I think the images are not exactly from a Ulysses, and so this helps a lot for me to kind of mock this up. This is the GPS bar. It's just kind of locating things. So I'm bolted all up here. This is tentatively tightened. This goes like that. This goes like this, with the inside ones down at the bottom. This is the up top of the screen, bottom of the screen, and the outer ones on the outside. And looking from the back, you can see the Ulysses logo is at the bottom, and then this is going to line up just like that. So I'll take a little bit of adjustment here. I am going to just gently tighten it to the screen. All I seem to have are like actual hardware, so I don't know if this was intended to be like a tool adjustment, or if I can put like a hand nut on this or something, like I've seen some of the other ones. But I'll be honest, I'm going to probably get it where I want it, and then I'm going to leave it there. So let's just tentatively tighten this up, and then we'll attach it and put it on the bike. All right, so as best I can tell, the correct orientation here is this captive deal from the outside with the nice Delrin washer right here. You can see I've got those washers in. The upper one goes into the slot right there. It's hard to hold this and show you guys and do it. The lower one goes into this hole right there. So you've got conical, the hex head, the little washer in between, and then you've got a Delrin washer, a stainless, and a stainless nut that'll go on the inside. So looks kind of like this, Delrin, Delrin, Delrin. So there's obviously no metal touching metal. And I think I'm just going to snug this up enough so I can make some adjustment on it. And then once I find the place I like, I'll tighten it for good. I don't think this would really work well with hand nuts unless you put them on the outside, and it's kind of a hassle. So I think we're going to let it be preset. And so we'll finish tightening this thing up, and then we'll see about putting it on the screen. bike screen, windscreen, or face, whatever you want to call it. We are going to marry these two up here. So we got our line of bolts. These will go in like this. Then we will get our rubber O-ring, and then this washer. And actually, I think it's the other way around. It's bolt, washer, Delrin, then the O-ring, and then the other side gets the big washer, the flat stainless, and the nylock nut. So remember, I keep wanting to put it together backwards. It goes like that. I've got it in the highest position just because I really want the most access to this one. So let's go ahead and start putting it together. All right, success so far. You can see I have my windscreen. It has a little bit of a gap. They sell a buffer thing that goes here. I don't know, we'll ride it and see what it needs it. I have it in a low position now. I have it tipped forward. While I have this off, I'm gonna go ahead and make the most of installing my TourTech locking bracket. So it's just 8mm nuts on the back. These are carriage bolts, so it's got a square hex in there. So I've just got the top two loose and the bottom two attached or detached, so I can slide it on this bar, because I need to figure out where the bar is going to fit without fouling on the screen, because the screen, as you can see on the bike, is going to sit right up against that. So I want it as far back as possible and as high up as possible. So we're going to just play with this a little bit while I have it off the bike. If you're not familiar with these, it's a great way to protect your investment of your GPS. I've been using the Montana for a long time. I know a lot of the folks there do too. There are newer, better units. I have no idea what they are, but I'm sure you can get a locking mount for it. So let's play with this and see if we can get it in position, and then we'll put the whole thing on the bike, wire it up, see if we can get it started. All right, everything's assembled on the bench. So this is plenty of space here. I've got it set in the lowest position and in the center in the tilt. And then there's actually adjustment in here for the GPS bar that goes back and forth. So I went ahead and tightened those 8mm here and left this outside one loose. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably actually just take a tiny notch out of this. Okay, that's aluminum. We'll probably take it out of the plastic. Take a tiny little notch out of the plastic here and just relieve that just a bit so that this can go through nicely. It's not a bike that I'm worried about replacing this if I have to. So put a little notch in that so that this will flow through real nice. And then we'll put it on the bike and get our final adjustment. And I'll show you guys why I don't want to just put it on the 1/2" crossbar right here. Like, it's built to go straight here and it's super easy, and then you got to deal with the wiring and stuff. And so I'll show you from the rider's perspective why up here is better and is my preference, and helps when you're riding off-road. So we're gonna go ahead and button that up. All that is remaining is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which I have 5 of, bolts that go and hold this face on. So a little bit of plastic work, a little bit of fine adjustment, and we'll pop this thing on and move on to the next part. All right, 2 notes after looking at the instructions. I put the rubber grommet or O-ring in here, and I just squished it in. I think that's fine, but they had you in the instructions getting it set in there first. Second thing is that you've got 2 little foamy deals, and they want you to put them here and here just to watch the buffeting as it goes like that. So other than that, you can see that everything else in here looks pretty good. Actually has headlight protector, although I'm pretty sure I have a burnt out bulb in there. So we'll pop our foamies on there and put this whole mess back together, and then bring the power down to the battery. All right, and there we have our finished product. Stainless brackets look great. I really have no idea how that's gonna change the windscreen. It's a lot higher, but right now I have it at the same or even a little bit further back angle. So I want to start it all the way down position and then kind of go up from there. So as you can see, the GPS bar fits excellent. So let's go ahead and sit in the riding position here. People say this is a tall bike. It's not a tall bike. It just has an incredibly wide center section. It's like sitting on a horse. So I'm 5'10". I've ridden plenty of bikes and I've never had problems with height. And I'm tippy-toeing in my sandals tonight. So if you were gonna just mount this as to the bar down here, when I'm standing in the riding position, or especially when you're standing, this is super low. And so it's not bad on this bike because the bars are a little far away. They have a lot of pullback and a lot of rise, but that is significantly better. The bike only revs to 5 grand, so I'm not really caring about that. And I'm not really worried about this one either. So I can see my gauges, but this is gonna give me my speed anyway. So I have it as far back and down, as far down as the screen will go and as far back as this will go. I can still release it and get the GPS out. My wiring is run right through there. I could have cut that a little bit more, but I'm trying to do the minimal damage to that plastic. So once the GPS is in, lock this down. I have good access to the key here, and I think that is an excellent, excellent setup. So knowing that I've worked with a lot of TourTech products and sold a lot of those products, they didn't ever make a GPS bar like this, but we sold a ton of those. I had one on my 650 V-Strom, and it was an excellent way to keep the GPS up high. I even had it like my phone up there for a little while. So there's definitely room on this to put a phone and a GPS or whatever, but I think it could be a lot of weight over time. So they do make a bracket to stabilize that from the crossbar, just to kind of make sure that it's as less buffeting as possible. But the GPS bracket above the windshield is an excellent upgrade. I don't care if you're riding street or dual sport or adventure ride, whatever. GPS up high, nice and easy to read is excellent. That's why you see all those new bikes, especially Panamera and some of those other big adventure bikes, with big screens, but they're kind of up, like almost rally-like, where they're up nice and high. So we're gonna get this wired up, and I'll show you what it looks like once we get the new battery in the bike. So we're gonna move on from here, hop on that side stand foot, we'll throw the new battery in and wire that up, and then we'll see if we can get this thing to crank up. All right, kickstand, big side stand foot. So I'm just gonna use my Allen key, my 8mm wrench here. It looks like there are several layers. The top, this big center thick layer, and then there are 2 layers of this lower section. So I don't know if I can thin this out or whatever. The bike doesn't honestly have a lot of lean over, so adding, you know, a little bit to that may not be the greatest idea. The spring is not super heavy, so I'm a little worried that this is gonna hit or is gonna just hang down. So all we're gonna do is just pop this apart, slide it on there, tighten it up. Let's do it. All right, so I struggle with that side stand foot and balancing the bike. Find your trusty ratchet strap, tie it to the handlebars, and you are good to go. I did remove one of the spacers. Fits tight, clears the exhaust, just barely. And it does come down nice and square, make a good impression for the bike, and it's gonna be a nice little tiny Farkle upgrade for the bike. So really now we just need to put the battery in and crank it up, make sure it runs. All right, despite the wires being incredibly difficult to fish for there being no gas tank, here is what I've done. I have a battery tender lead on the battery tender lead for GPS. When I want to run the GPS or when I'm going to use it and it's not being in storage mode, just plug that in and your GPS has power. So we can go ahead and hit where to and find whatever we want to do. So can shut it off and let it charge. And I can also just pop it out. I don't really worry about the socket drawing much current, and if I really need to, I can just disconnect it down here. So let's put the seat back on and crank it up. It takes a little bit of use to get to that key. Fuel pump sounds much better. Fire. And there you go, plugged into the battery charger, ready for the next ride. So it did give me a voltage error when I first started it. I shut it off and started it again, and it came right off. So took it for a quick spin on the driveway. Everything is looking good. All right, the Buell is ready for some adventures. Got a couple of projects coming for that. Nothing super crazy. Could use some pannier stuff. Maybe a couple of more things that are more road riding oriented or trip oriented. We're gonna try to get the logo tricked up. We're gonna shop for some tires, maybe even do some cosmetic stuff. And you'll see the Buell again on the channel. So let us know if you're riding a Buell or if you're out there riding Ulysses especially. And stay tuned to the Barefoot Garage for more content on two wheels. See you guys.